What's up, everybody? Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Ananka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today, I have a 2C-T-7, Ketamine, and Soma trip report for you. The title of this trip report is Unimaginably Intense, and was submitted to Erowid in 2002 by the user Fair Nymph. With all that being said, let our story begin. Dose 5 milligrams exactly weighed out, intravenously injected. Other drugs taken: 1 Soma at 2:45 a.m., T plus 5 hours, and 40 milligrams ketamine intramuscular at 4:30 a.m., T plus 7 hours. Experience: 1 prior experience with 2C-T-7, 25 milligrams orally, and many experiences with other drugs/psychedelics. Setting: hanging out in a dorm room and around campus with a couple of close friends. Duration: onset, immediate. Plateau, 3 hours. Come down, 6.5 hours. 9:30 p.m. As I injected the contents of the syringe, my friends watched in amazement as my pupils dilated from small to complete saucers over the course of a few seconds. I felt the drug beginning to take effect as I was injecting the solution. The solution burned in my veins, and I have injected many things, and I felt like my veins were unhappy about being subjected to such a chemical. After I finished, I was completely and suddenly overwhelmed and tripping harder, physically and visual-wise, than I ever have in my entire life. I have taken high doses of acid and mushrooms before, but nothing could have prepared me for the intensity of my first reaction to IV 2C-T7. I laid back on my bed, and there is no way that I could have walked around or moved or functioned normally in my current state. My body high, load buzz was more intense than anything I have ever known, and negatively so. It would be like the worst research chemical body load, muscle tension, etc. you could imagine combined with an intense MDMA body high. Right after injection, I could hear time warp as the music slowed down, almost ketamine-like. But a few seconds later it sped up again. And indeed, I would say that for most of the trip, time is sped up rather than slowed down. I thought to myself, damn, I realize why people don't IV this shit. And I realized the dose was way too high, and that I should have done more like 3 milligrams. At the same time, however, I was having the most intense and amazing visuals I have ever had. I have had intense trips on both acid and mushrooms, and never did I have more breathing. And then only on acid at a very high dose, and only for about 15 minutes while I was peaking. The most visual trip I had had prior to the current experience was also on 2C-T7, 25 milligrams orally, which was a relatively nice, mild trip, but with good visual qualities. Colors looked prettier, lots of breathing and tracers, the only drug I've ever had tracers on. My visuals were so intense that I could not see straight. I saw rainbow swirling patterns, many swirling rainbow spirals all connected across my frame of vision, and colors were vivid. I was seeing closed-eye visuals superimposed over what I was seeing with my eyes open. There were visuals that seemed like they were coming from behind my eye, like flashes of light. At points, I felt like there were eyes everywhere, both watching me and seeing for me. No, this was not scary, but rather quite wonderful. My eyes were wide open, and I don't think I could have closed them if I had wanted to. I could see fractals superimposed over my field of vision. Truly astounding. Everything was vibrating rapidly, like breathing that is tweaking really damn hard. My body felt like it was vibrating to the same rapid frequency. I have never seen such beauty and miraculous visual distortions. I was extremely nauseous, almost immediately after injecting, and had horrible tension throughout my digestive tract. I had been thinking that injecting the 2C-T-7 would reduce the nausea, but I am wrong. I have never thrown up from any drug except alcohol, and IV 2C-T7 made me vomit profusely until I was dry heaving. Despite the unpleasant, overwhelming physical effects, my mind was surprisingly clear. Though my body felt somewhat poisoned, I was not experiencing any mindfuck, as I typically do on acid and shrooms at higher doses. I was definitely in awe of the amazing visuals, and I felt a little giggly, but only very slightly confused. 10 p.m. I was still tripping really hard, although I can say without a doubt that I peaked immediately upon injection, and that I was still just plateauing at this point. I was getting amazing synesthesia, unlike anything I could ever imagine. I was feeling music, smelling colors, and seeing sounds. I felt like a ball of undifferentiated sensation. It is definitely a unique and very enjoyable experience, and I was totally in awe and gushing to my friends. 12:30 a.m. Right around now, my nausea/stomach tension had subsided enough, though it is still present, to where I could sit up and drink small amounts of water without feeling like I have to dry heave. I was still tripping very intensely, and the visuals continued to be strong. I was still unhappy with the body tension, especially like a tight, burning feeling in my arms, but I felt like it has calmed down a bit by this point, so that I no longer felt anxious and poisoned. 2:30 a.m. I had started to come down at this point, but I still felt somewhat disoriented, and I had to be careful to walk around safely, due to my intense visuals, though not nearly as intense as earlier. The body load was still quite heavy, but not so much that I felt nauseous walking around. My friends convinced me that walking around would be good, so we went outside. We walked on a path that goes around a lake, and I was amazed by how beautiful my natural surroundings were. It's almost like I was in a fantasy world, kinda like something out of The Lord of the Rings. And because it was so dark, it seemed like everything was colored in shapes of purple, orange, and green, lending to a very trippy feel to the world. I felt an almost childlike wonder, and the lights and stars are beautiful and glowing and hyper-colorful. We continued walking around for a good hour, which was fun, though I was extremely cold, as I always am on phenethylamines. Colors continued to look amazing, but I was definitely becoming more and more sober by the minute. 2:45 a.m. My body tension was still bad, although I felt like I was barely still tripping at this point, and most of the cool, visual effects of the trip had disappeared. I decided to take a Soma, and I felt it begin to kick in about 20 minutes later. Unfortunately, it only reduced my body discomfort slightly, but I decided that I didn't want to take more, to keep my experience relatively pure. 4:30 a.m. my friends and I decided to IM some ketamine. I was mostly down at this point, though I was still getting some visual effects if I focused really intently. I IM'd 40 milligrams ketamine, and I appreciated its numbing effects on my body and physical sensations. At one point, the high, combined 2C-T-7 and K euphoria, was quite pleasantly intense. Despite the fact that I routinely IM 40 milligrams and whole quite thoroughly, I did not whole this time. It is as if even the dissociation of ketamine was not enough to override the intense physical presence brought on by the 2C-T7. The K trip did seem more visual and less slowed down sound-wise. Sound sounded almost normal, and it was definitely much less introspective. I talked periodically with my friends throughout the trip, which does not usually happen for me at this dose of K. It was an interesting combination, though I find myself wishing I had done more. The K did not make my stomach discomfort worse. 6 a.m. I was totally down, except for a persistent, unpleasant feeling in my body, and in particular my arms. Also, my arm that I shot the T7 into was particularly unhappy. Although there were no physical signs of distress, the injection site looked absolutely fine. In fact, it's even hard to find. 10:45 a.m. I ate some food. I was quite hungry. And I was completely sober, but still had a persisting, yucky feeling in my body, as well as the nasty tension in my arms, and in my one arm, especially as I mentioned above. Summary: I have mixed feelings about my experience. On the one hand, I do not regret the trip, as I had the most amazing visuals ever, and I doubt I will ever experience anything like that ever again. I was also okay physically. I did not die, and I appear to be completely normal 2 days later, so I doubt that the trip will have long-lasting effects on me. On the other hand, the trip was quite uncomfortable at times, and damn unpleasant for the most intense parts of the trip. There was definitely a price to pay for the visuals I saw. I don't think I would do this again, and if I could redo the experience, I would take a lower dose, around 3 milligrams. This drug is extremely potent. Alright, everyone. That is the end of our story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Share with us your T7 experiences down in the comments below. Check out the other videos and playlists on my channel, and I will see you in the next one, fam. Deuces.